everybody's doing good? Doing good? How are you doing? Good. Bro, Joseph. Oh, here comes Joseph. Are you coming to class?
Yeah.
Awesome. So we're gonna record the class. We're gonna send it out. So all the stuff you say is gonna be kept for posterity forever. But we record everything in here, and that's what we need to do. How is business? How does everybody feel about business right now with real estate? What are your thoughts?
I feel it's a good business.
It's good business. Okay, that's good. That's positive. What about Joseph? How do you feel about the real estate business right now?
Well, I have a lot of people have tenants and they want to sell.
Yep.
When the tenants leave and then they want to remodel. I have other people that they're old and they want to recover first and then sell it. I have a few people I'm talking with. And then I have other people fixing their house. They want to sell it in like 3-4 months. I have a few buyers I'm talking with.
Mhm.
I went to open house yesterday and I'm just following up on them.
So you feel it's good.
It's good,
Okay.
and a lot of people I'm trying to get pre-qualified. Trying to introduce them to a lender. I had another person I have somebody who got pre-qualified looking for a foreclosure.
Yep.
I have a pre-qual. I'm always constantly looking for foreclosures for her. I'm trying to right now get in contact with for sale by owners right now.
Yep.
Um,
Have you talked to Clearmark Title because they can get you some?
I'm on Zillow. I went on Zillow and I'm calling for sell by owners.
Cool.
Yeah.
How do you feel real estate's going for you right now? Positive about it. Positive about it. Okay. All right. So today's class, we're going to be talking about how to create real estate investors in today's market. I was not sure how to frame or what to call this because I just basically came up with it based on what's going on in the world. And the biggest frustration we have as real estate agents right now is that there's not enough listings, right? The inventory is terrible. It's the lowest inventory we've probably ever seen, if not close to it. I think right now in most places they're like 40%, 30% under market from last year. So the amount of people that want to sell are not there. And there's lots of reasons for that. One of the reasons is that back in 2008, a lot of institutional investors came in and bought a whole bunch of real estate properties, and those properties are just not available anymore. So there's a whole subset of the market that disappeared because of that. And that's all over the United States, but more so here. Why do you guys think it would be more so here than any place else in the United States that a lot of institutional investors would come in and buy a bunch of real estate?
Because California home prices for the most part, are always going to appreciate what people want to live.
We have the biggest home prices, and we're going to appreciate quicker than most places. The only other place besides California that has prices like this in abundance is probably New York City, but their market is so far different than ours. It's not even funny. It's not even like there was a point in time where we were crushing it. Like it was a seller's market. We were crushing it out here in California, and then New York, like their average days on market was 365 days. So like if you took a listing in New York, it's going to sit on the market for about a year. Like I can't even fathom that because I had homes back when I started that we had them on the market for like 3 to 4 months. And I don't even think agents could like think of that right now because that's a crazy number. If you put it on the market and you don't get something happening within 2 weeks, you're like, oh, you overpriced it. So the institutional investors came in and bought a whole bunch of real estate. So you have a whole subsection of the market that's just not there. It's not coming back anymore, but you do have a bunch of people that refi when everything was like 3%. I know my mortgage with my wife is like 2.99. And there's just a grip of people that like I'm good, I'm not selling. So that's a big deal. What I want to talk to you about though is before we even get into this, I need you to work on your mindset. This is why I believe a lot of people have not gone into this space because not only do sellers and homeowners not understand how to do the investing aspect of it, neither do a lot of real estate agents. There's a whole bunch of real estate agents that rent, they don't own investment properties, they don't own homes, and that is a problem in itself. So what I want you to do is I want you to think, is what I'm saying possible? I want you to think, don't we all have this voice inside of our head that talks about the things that we can't do. Have you ever done this? Why would anyone listen to me? Right? And that's just in real estate in general, buying and selling. And we have this mindset that messes us all up. We all have a voice inside our head that is essentially trying to protect us. You have to fight that voice to grow. So the voice inside of our head, it's predetermined because we are creatures that back in caveman days, like we had to wake up, we had to like protect ourselves from getting eaten by other animals and go find food, right? And now we've grown to where we have other things, but our mind is just hardwired to protect ourselves, to go against discomfort and go toward comfort. And so when you start thinking about things that help your business grow and to do things that are probably a little bit uncomfortable, you can always think of a reason not to do it. So you have to think outside of the box, and you have to be more aggressive when it comes to learning and figuring out how to do these things. And I'm going to give you the tools to do it, but you have to step forward and put yourself into an uncomfortable position. If you are like, really not super interested, then you partner with another agent and you figure it out. And you get a team, a battle buddy. You get a battle buddy in real estate. When I first started in real estate, I started coaching right when I first started. Like I was rookie of the year. Once they found out I was rookie of the year, they're like, well, you have to teach people now. So I started coaching and teaching people. And I remember I had these two women, still friends with these ladies today. Two women in my coaching class. I had 10 people essentially. And they were both hungry. They were both innovative. They were hustlers, but they just could not get it together. I had the idea one day, well, put you guys together. Let's put you guys together. You guys can be a team. You guys can play off of each other. Lo and behold, they started getting business. And it was just a mindset shift. And they had, it was like a support group for real estate, right? Because if you sell commission, you have to split everything, but it's better than splitting nothing, right? So figure out where your mindset is. If you need help with that, we can talk about that. This is the first thing when I coach agents, the first thing I ever talk about is the mindset, because your mind has to get right. So figure out what your mindset is. Well, there's two strategies. Two strategies for what I'm talking about today. Now, there's multiple strategies when it comes to real estate investing. Massive, massive strategies. One of the things, and I'm going to go back to mindset a lot on this. A lot of it, like, I need to buy rental property and I need to do it close. I need to be able to touch it. I need to be able to see it. That's a limiting belief. You don't have to buy something in Los Angeles to be there for it. You can buy something anywhere in the United States. And I would say that other places in the United States, you're going to find better deals. You're going to find better cash flow. You're going to find better opportunities. There's a lot of issues when it comes to California. But one of the strategies I found, because I started to do it for myself. And when I figured this out, I was like, oh, I got to tell everybody about this. This is really cool. And one of the strategies is buying in California. So there's two strategies that I'm going to talk about here. Airbnb and buying and creating units, where you buy a home and you turn it into units. And I have a special guest here to help us with that, because that is probably the more complicated and probably more scary strategy, because it involves building, it involves contractors, it involves all of these things that, unless you are dialed in, it's probably it's probably the one you can probably lose money on the most, to be honest. So I'm going to go through the Airbnb strategy, and I'm going to gloss over the construction strategy, and then I'm going to talk to, and I should have, do I have Brian on here? Brian, my lender? Brian Willie on here? So where do you start? You start with your sphere of influence. If you're brand new, if you've never sold a house, you have to make sure that everybody that knows you knows you're in real estate. That's just common stuff, right? But you have to talk to the people you know. You have to find out who you know. Do they rent? Do they own? If they're in a rental, how long are they in a rental? Like all of these questions. And just because somebody rents, don't have the mindset that they can't afford to buy real estate. Most people, especially in California, don't buy real estate and rent because they just don't have enough information in hand. Hello? They don't understand the value. They don't understand what it takes to fix whatever the situation is that they're in to get to where they need to go. And if you explained it to them and had enough conversations with them, they would probably understand that owning real estate is probably a really good investment. And I will say it's probably the best investment out of every investment on the planet. And if anybody wants to challenge me, let's have that combo. It'd be really cool. The second way to start is you take all the information I give you and you create a webinar for your people. The really cool thing about webinars today, I did webinars back in the day when I first started in real estate, and it was a one and done. You did the webinar and then people watched it or they didn't watch it, and then that was it. Today, you can have a webinar on tap. Means you can record a webinar, do a webinar, and then have this link to where when anybody clicks on it, it is always there for people to watch. And it is a lead generation tool. I would say you should do that for first-time home buyers. Create a first-time home buyer webinar, have it on your website, have it anywhere so people can click on it, and they will always be able to see your stuff. So I would create a webinar on how to create passive income with your equity. You call it whatever you want to call it. The third is an investor class or a mastermind. So we've talked about this in my team meetings to where you can create an investor class. You can talk about how to become an investor, how to buy distressed properties, how to buy whatever. Just create something that's attractive to get people in the room. And you bring a lender, you bring a credit person, you bring a CPA, you bring a builder, you bring all of these people, and you create this class. Or you can create a mastermind. Mastermind is a really, really powerful thing. You can do that on meetup.com. You can do it on a weekly thing, on a monthly thing, to where you want to get a whole bunch of people together to learn how to buy and learn how to invest in real estate, and you help educate these people. And I would say the best place to reach out to create all of these things is you start with your sphere of influence. You start with everybody you already know. The mindset around sphere of influence is, I think, one of the biggest issues that we have is that when I say sphere of influence, you think directly sphere of influence. What you want to do is you want to directly think that it's going to go to your sphere of influence, but it's also to go out to the people they know as well. It's a quadratic effect to where it goes to one person, then it goes to another person. And it's basically how videos and everything becomes viral. People like it, people comment, people share it. And that is what happens when you talk to your sphere of influence. So that's something that you should absolutely do. These are the 3 best ways to do it. And all of these things can be used and people can be made aware with social media. If your business is not where it needs to be right now, it's probably because enough people just don't know about you or know what you're doing. Social media is a great vehicle for you to post and put different things out there so people know that you have business. With our real estate team, we have some people on the team that haven't really done any business. We encourage them, share the things that we do. Share the things that Tracy and I do, because then it shows that you're on a team, you're doing business, and, you know, instead of just not doing anything, because that's the opposite thing, right?
Yes.
Oh, Brian, how you doing?
Good morning.
Good. So everybody, it's Brian Woolley. He is a friend, and he is the lender that I've been using for a very long time. He knows every real estate agent out there on the planet, and he is one of the best resources that I have found in my real estate business and in Tracy's real estate business. So when I was thinking of this strategy, I was going through him and giving him all of these ideas to come up with the crunch numbers for me. And you popped in right at the perfect time for this slide. So you want to give a little history on yourself and who you are and what you do?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. My name is
Brian, can you type your information into the chat so everybody can have it? And then we're going to share it with everybody in the room. So Brian Woolley is with PMG Mortgage, and he is, like I said, he's a really good friend. I really wouldn't trust anybody else with the information that I'm going to give you. And the lender is the vital part of this situation. Vital. Like, you have the right lender. If you're going to try a lender for this, I would say absolutely do not do that. You need somebody that you trust that's going to be honest with you. I cannot tell you how many times I've had lenders ghost me, lenders disappear, blah, blah, blah. For me, it's really hard. I have PTSD in trusting lenders. That's why Brian is the guy. I know where he lives. Like, he can't, like, when he gets on his motorcycle, I know where he's riding. Like, there's only a handful of places that he's going to go. So, like, he can't hide from me if there's a problem. And the thing is that you want to work with people that are going to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear, and are honest with you up front. So this is the team. So you have the team. You need a team when you do investors with real estate. You can't just do it by yourself. You have to leverage yourself, because this is a big idea. Because once you get someone that does this with you, you've created a client for life, and they're going to refer other people to you. It's just the way it's going to work. So you need a good lender, and that's why I said I need good. You need a referral agent with specific knowledge. I would say, unless you already have all the information that I'm telling you, to not try to do this yourself. Not try to do it in the city of Los Angeles, because the city of Los Angeles for Airbnb is really difficult. Like Inglewood, like Tracy and I sold property in Inglewood. We found out through Inglewood that they're done. They capped their Airbnbs. There's places that are Airbnbs capped. You just can't do it. You have to apply, and there's like all of these crazy rules, right? Same with Vegas, same with Palm Springs, same with all of these different areas. But if you find the right referral partner, it works really, 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 really well. And that's what we're going to talk about. So the lender's knowledge the lender has to have knowledge in different loan programs, specifically for investors. So we talk about residential loans and stuff on our team meetings all the time. When it comes to buying real estate as an investor, there are a tremendous amount of opportunities out there and different ways to do it. So there's hard money loans. There's I wish I could get this thing for Brian to talk, but there's loans out there that you guys have never heard of before that you can absolutely do that have nothing to do with income. And you can figure it out. So don't worry about the loan, but your lender has to know these things. If your lender has to educate himself on it, pass. Go find a lender that knows what he's doing. Because what I did is I went to Brian and I said, hey, what about this? He was like, absolutely, there's all these things. And like he just started rattling off all of these things that you can do when it comes to loans. I was like, well, you're the guy then. Like you're 100% the guy. Referral agent, knowledge of the buildings and Airbnb. So if you're going out of the area of Los Angeles, you need to make sure that the referral agent knows what he is doing. Part of the way I figured this out is that, Tracy and I are like, we should buy some investment properties. And so I started looking around and I thought to myself, wow, Palm Springs would be really cool to buy an investment property. So I put out on Facebook, hey, does anybody know of a really good Palm Springs agent? I could go out there with my license and do it. I could. That would be very dumb of me to do that because I don't know the Palm Springs market. I mean, I can research it, but I don't really know it. And I think that agents that go into another market are actually doing a disservice to their client. If you want to go into another market, partner with somebody that knows the market really well, unless you absolutely 100% do. So I went to Palm Springs. I had Richard Shulman gave me a referral, happened to be one of the best referrals I found. And the guy that I was referred to is the director of luxury for Keller Williams International for the whole planet. His business with his team is in Palm Springs. Had no clue. And I said, well, this is what I want to do. I want to take equity from my property and I want to go buy an investment property. And I don't know if buying and holding and renting or Airbnb, I don't know what's the best. And he's like, I got you. I actually sat on the board for the city to determine who's allowed and who's not allowed to do Airbnb. And there's 5 cities of the Palm Springs area, Palm Springs included, that you're allowed to, but you can't do it in all parts of Palm Springs. And he literally broke it down. And he's like, hey, if you want to go into the Big Bear, Lake Arrowhead area, I got you too. I'm like, oh, wow. So I found the guy. So he hooked me up with one of his buyer's agents and he gave me all the tools and all the information that I needed. And I'm going to give that all to you guys. You guys will be able to ask me if you have questions. So that is probably one of the best referral agents. Now, that guy in Palm Springs, they have that guy in other cities, other states. You just have to do your research. It's called due diligence and it's work. And it's not super fun. It's not like the super sexy part of the job, but that's the part that's probably going to make you the most money is to make sure you have another person on the other side. I mean, how cool would it be to make a phone call, find an agent in, say, like Alabama, you go buy a $200,000 house, and then you have $500 coming in or $2,000 coming in passive income just randomly every month. It's pretty cool, right? So it's about due diligence and finding the right partner. That's really super important. Builders and contractors. So builders and contractors, when it comes to the other aspect of, and actually Airbnb too, we'll talk about that, but builders and contractors, when you're building units, buying units, creating units, when you're doing that, having a builder and a contractor is probably the most important thing. And I will say on the other side, this is aside from Airbnb, when you're buying units, your builder and contractor can be your best friend or it can be your worst nightmare. I can give you millions of ideas. I can give you millions of stories on how a contractor can be a nightmare and how a lot of them will over leverage what they're able to do. If a contractor says it's going to be X dollars, 100%, it'll take longer and it'll cost more. I've never seen a contractor under deliver and over, like, it's just never happened. They've never come in at where they said they were coming in. It was always more money, it was always more time. Management and cleaning companies. So whether you are renting and holding, Airbnb, there's management companies, there's cleaning companies, there's little things that come into play. Now, your referral partner on the other end of this should have all of that information. And one of the things that I was going to do with Tracy is that if we bought one Airbnb in Palm Springs, I was like, I don't need a management company. We can do that from our phone on our own until we get like 10. We get 10, like we'll offload that. Like that's going to be a little bit more work. But when you see the numbers that I play with here, when you do 10, you're going to be making enough money to where you don't really have to worry about a management company. It's going to take care of itself. If you guys have questions in Zoom, type them in the box. Laura will check and we will see here. There's Brian's number, bwillie@prmg.com. There are many different programs for investors. Absolutely. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, the strategy. So we're going to start with Airbnb, but the strategy is that statistics came out that over 70% of Americans homeowners have at least 50% equity. So if you take that number into consideration, that's on the next slide. Most people don't buy because fear or lack of knowledge. Because if somebody has equity, why would they not take that money to have it go somewhere else and do something for them, right? Tremendous upside and very little downside. I know, bless you. I know investors that have been flipping homes in California and have never lost $1. That's because they understand the numbers. It's literally a numbers game. And when you start making it something else, that's when you get into all the minutia and craziness. It's all just a numbers game. With enough research, the risk is limited, if not 100% eliminated. Now, what's your upside? That's what we're going to talk about. So, the average price home in California is $1 million. If 70% of people that have equity have 50% equity, then that means the average amount of equity in the United States is about $50,000, $500,000. So you have equity is $500,000. If you take a loan out, 80% of 500,000 is 400,000. These are rough numbers. Everybody's going to be different. Okay, this is my disclaimer. I wish Brian could talk, but our system's all janky. Yes.
Could people just call her so that we can hear him in this room?
Are we gonna get feedback on that? What's your number, Brian?
Oh yeah, what if one of us logs in from Zoom? Then I can play my phone now.
I can just call him here. Hold on.
Okay.
There you go. What are you doing?
Sitting here watching you.
I'm sure you could do something better. Be doing something better. So did you have any commentary or anything about what I was saying so far?
No, go ahead and I'll catch up.
Okay. So the numbers that I have here are rough numbers. And if Brian wants to jump in, just jump in and let me know what else you want to say. But like, let's say you have $1 million property and you have 50% equity, which is $500,000. If you take 80% of that equity, that's $400,000 that you have to invest. If you do nothing with that, it's literally sitting there and you're gaining appreciation on $1 million property, which is amazing. But like, let's say it goes up 5%, because it's not going to go up as much as it has been. Like the last couple of years, it's been 20%. Goes up 5% every year. So you're getting 5% on $1 million. That's great. But what if you could quadruple that? That's where this idea is going. So if you take $400,000 out and you use not the whole $400,000, you use $250,000 to $300,000, right? So you're using a fraction of the equity that you have. So $250,000 to $300,000, you go buy a $700,000 property. Yes, I know it's a lot. I'm basing this off of the actual scenario that I was going to do in Palm Springs, because I have real numbers on how that works. So, Brian, on a HELOC for this scenario, what type of percentage rate are you looking at?
11,
11%
and that's today.
today.
So that's probably with the Fed having completed its cycle of rate hikes. So that number will drop over time.
Yeah. And then, so when you do a HELOC, you take out all the money and you only use what you need to use. So like if you take out all the money and you never touch it, you're not going to get charged anything. There'll probably be some processing fees or whatever. And if I'm wrong on anything, just, jump in and step on my toe. But if you only use 250 or 300,000 of the 500,000, then you're only going to get charged for that on a monthly fee. Do you know off the top of your head what that would be on a $250,000 HELOC?
Monthly payment,
Yeah,
$22.91.
$2,291. So you have $2,200 roughly. So now you have that. So whatever you do has to cover that as well as anything else you do, right? So $250,000 to $300,000, you buy a $700,000 property, 25% down. That's $175,000. Again, there's extra fees and other things that go in here. I'm being very general because it's all a numbers game. You can get the house for $650,000, $675,000. You can make the numbers work. Every situation is going to be different. So you put $175,000 down. That leaves $75,000 for improvements. And Airbnb, you can find, will make $96,000 a year in Palm Springs. That's gross over a year, which will net you $40,000 after everything is paid. That means when everything is paid, I mean mortgage on the Airbnb, your HELOC loan, all of that stuff. If you play the numbers right, you can walk away with a $40,000 year income, which if you do the math, $20 an hour, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, that's a part-time job. That's a full-time job. You just made a full-time job. You haven't spent any money out of your pocket, and you have now a rental property. Now this is based on 49% occupancy rate. That means half the time it's not occupied, the other half it is, which means you can go use it. It's yours in Palm Springs. So the area that I'm looking at is Palm Springs. There's 5 cities in Palm Springs that can Airbnb. Resources are the referral agent with the access to AirDNA. Has anybody ever heard of AirDNA? No. Am I doing good, Brian?
Yeah, I'd like to add too, this
Absolutely.
isn't even taking into account, now you've got 2 homes appreciating at 5%. And you have 2 mortgages being paid down and building equity by paying principal.
So now what you did is you took $300,000 and you just bought a $700,000 asset, and now that $300,000 is now appreciating on $700,000. It's almost you doubled everything you did. Does that make sense? So that alone, you're going to be making money. Yes.
Could you briefly define equity for me? Just I think I know what it is, but I want to make sure.
Right. So if you have $500,000 and you put $250,000 down on a property and you have a $250,000 loan, that $250,000, that's your equity. So when your when your home appreciates, let's say it appreciates 10% and that $500,000 appreciated $50,000, you have an extra $50,000 in equity. Equity is what you don't owe that you have available to you. Does that make sense?
So it's like the difference between what the home is worth and the home.
So if it's worth $500,000 and you owe $250 on it, you have $250,000 worth of equity.
Nice.
Got it? Okay. So this is an actual property that was sent to me today by the agent in Palm Springs. It's like $700,000. And the thing that makes this valuable, so when I talked to the agent, I was going through playing with all the numbers, and I said, what about this house? What about this house? He's like, nope, this house is better. I said, but that one looks worse. And he goes, AirDNA is like Zillow. You need me to help you figure it out. The reason it's better is because that one has a pool and the other one doesn't. You're in Palm Springs. When people rent something, they're going to rent something that has a pool before they rent anything else. I go, oh, it's really good one. So that's an actual property in Palm Springs. And this is the AirDNA. So to say I'm in Poncho in India, Revenue projection, $89,000. Average daily rate, $429. Occupancy rate, 57%. So all you have to do is take the price of the property you're buying, your mortgage, it's a numbers game. All you have to do is figure out how to make the numbers work. What I figured out to do is I would take out the average rate and drop mine and make mine more affordable. It would actually increase the occupancy rate by 3 or 4%. And I would actually get even more money at the end by like $3,000 or $4,000 at the end of the year. So like something like this, you're going to make somewhere between $30,000 and $40,000 a year net after everything is paid. I mean, it's pretty cool, right? And all you have to do, and this is why I say you don't, so you have 300,000, you put 175 down and you have like $25,000 to $50,000 to play with. You don't want to buy something that's like amazingly, buy something that's rentable, that's clean, that has a pool, right? And listen to your agent. That's the key. And this is what you beat into your people that you are talking to that want to do this. You have to listen to your agent, right? So this is a whole thing. It's Airbnb. It's just like Zillow. So you can look around. These are all, if you own an Airbnb, you have to report your numbers. Your numbers get reported, and that's what this is. So you see this one, $75,000 a year, $52,000 a year, $142,000 a year. So if you have the money, you can go buy something in Palm Springs that gets you $200,000 in gross income every year. And I looked at these homes, I was like, this is incredible. I mean, if you have that, you know, if you're not risk adverse, it's a great deal. Because this is the thing. Real estate in California is not going anywhere anytime soon. Unless there's that E word. I'm not saying it. That's the only thing that's really going to harm our real estate world. And I'm not saying it.
What the F word?
Huh?
What the F word?
I don't know what the F word is.
Fired.
Yeah, I mean, but we're kind of already messed up on that because
Yeah.
nobody will insure us anymore. So, but the thing is that if you're looking for equity building and you want to create investors, this is probably, in my mind, the safest and best way to do it. Now, what you can do is if you have enough equity, you can go buy something a little bit cheaper, like $650, that doesn't have a pool, and you put in a pool. So, and again, that's a numbers game. And listen to your agent on the other end. And if you guys want the guy's name that I'm working with over there to talk to him, his name is Tony. He's with the Brady Sandahl group out in Palm Springs. They're amazing. Love them.
Frank, when
Yes.
Airbnb in that town decides not to just to cancel, that it's happening like in New York City, that
Yep.
what happens?
So that's part of due diligence again. And the reason I'm talking about Palm Springs is because Brady Sandahl, the director for luxury for Keller Williams, is actually on the board for the city. So like he's a very, like, I would feel out of every place I'd look at having the money, I would feel very confident in doing this because they understand the value, because there is a part of Palm Springs you can't do it in, but there's 5 cities that you can. The same with Vegas. Like you can't do Airbnb, like everybody says, you can't do Airbnb in Vegas. I just got an Airbnb for family reunion on the Strip. So yeah, you can. You just have to do your due diligence. So we sold a property in Inglewood and they were like, no more Airbnb. This lady bought it to do Airbnb. She's like, I'm not scared. I'm just gonna do it. And she like figured it out. And so you can figure it out, but it comes back to doing your due diligence and finding a safe place and doing your research, because nobody wakes up and goes, we're not doing Airbnb in New York starting today. Like it's usually a conversation that happens, right? So there's usually, they talk about it. They're like, oh, this is too risky, or this is happening. Legislation and things like that usually play out over a period of time. So it's like, you just have to do a little bit of research.
What's the reason as to why the board or these boards are like this whatever legislation don't want Airbnb?
It's usually competition for local hotels. People don't like short-term rentals because of the negative stigma that it brings. Kind of like, if you own an area and you have renters come in, like that brings down the value. Like there's a whole bunch of different conversations on that. So it just depends on the area. Like in Vegas, it's like they don't want to compete against hotels, right? And Palm Springs, like the reason you can do it in some parts of Palm Springs and not others is because of the same thing. They don't want competition. You know, instead, what the hotel should be doing is go out and doing this. The hotel should be doing this and not worrying about it. It should be, you know, competition. But so let's talk about the rental strategy. So this is something that you can absolutely do in Los Angeles right now. And the way I found this is that I had a friend that bought a property in Winnetka. Of all places, Winnetka. Now, when I started in real estate, I sold a house in Winnetka for like $325,000. It's like average like $800,000, $900,000 in Winnetka now. It's a little insane. But I had somebody that bought a $700,000 house in Winnetka. They converted the garage and then they put a ADU in the back. And now they have 3 rentals. And it's 100% legal because LA changed their zoning rules and all of that fun stuff. So if you average price home is $1 million, same scenario, you $175,000 to $125,000, leaving $120,000. So if you're doing $300,000, so 25% of $700,000, you put $175,000 down, leaving $125,000 for improvement. So the improvement cost is more because you're buying something that is not pristine, right? You want to do that because there's an element of what's called the Burr method here. Have you guys ever heard of the Burr method? It's buy, rehab, refinance, blah, blah, blah. The whole book on it's really good, but it's basically you buy a property, you fix it up a little bit to make it worth a little bit more, then you pull the equity out of that and you go buy another property and you just kind of daisy chain it on down the line. It all depends. There's people that are making millions of dollars off of it. But see, the thing is real estate in general, it's all risky. Being in real estate is risky. Like ask the 60,000 agents that are not doing this anymore this year. So you buy a light fixer, if not move-in condition, but not anything that's crazy. Like you have to make sure that it makes sense numbers-wise. This is why your lender, like if I go to buy something that's stupid, Brian's going to be like, hey, Frank, this is stupid. Like you want that lender to do that, right, Brian?
Yep.
Like he's not going to pull, he's going to tell me what I need to hear, not what I want to hear. Other lenders and other people out there are going to try to push the deal through because they want the business. Like we give Brian business, Brian helps us, Brian does a really good job. Like it's a very reciprocal relationship to where I'm not worried about him trying to push a deal through because he wants to get paid, because he knows there's going to be more business coming to him. So you want a lender that has that type of relationship. You convert the garage and add an ADU in the back. That is the super basic part of it. So Tracy and I just sold a property in North Hollywood for, I think it's $640,000. Tracy can correct me if I'm wrong. It was in North Hollywood. It was unlivable. Couldn't live in it. It was so bad. You could take $125,000, maybe $200,000, fix it up. The lot was 7,000 square feet. You can put 2 ADUs in the back. You can convert the garage. You can do a lot of amazing things to where that $640,000 property is now making you like $1,000 to $2,000 a month. Rents on all 3 cover HELOC, you cover mortgage with extra income. So the person that bought this house in Winnetka and put an ADU in the back charged $3,000 a month for the ADU. I was like, what? That's insane. But supply and demand. Rental market is really tough out here. The housing market is even more tough because when you have people that can't afford homes, what other choice? They have 2 choices. They can pay high rent or they can move out of state. Is there another choice? Am I missing another choice? That's right. That's it, right? High rent, move out of state. Now, I think last year, like we actually had a downtick in population in California because we did have a tremendous amount of people moving out. They moved to Texas, they moved to Vegas. Like they didn't move to Austin because Austin's like East California now. But they've moved to other places that's more affordable because the average sale price in like the United States, I think, is somewhere around $400,000. So now if you want to go local and find someplace really close that's not as expensive to do this, I have one word for you: Bakersfield. Bakersfield is amazing. Their average sale price is under $400,000. They have tons of land, and so I help run the Bakersfield office. I know a tremendous amount about that area. You can find homes. You can do exactly what I'm doing out here at half the price point. And it's kind of close, you know. It's got some good restaurants out there. Go out there and check it out. But This is the key to this whole system with this, is your contractor. Your contractor, excuse my language, your contractor can screw you on this. If you get the wrong person. I had a contractor show up to do restoration on my home because my dishwasher decided to take a dump and flooded my entire kitchen. And we were like, oh, this is the perfect opportunity to redo all of our floors inside of our house. And I had a person that I knew, sort of, not super personally, but I knew him. And we brought him in to do the work. Well, let's just say we won't work with him again. It was not the best experience. I still have a drawer in my cabinets that when I open it, it goes, this was put in wrong. So like every time I'm like, I say the guy's name out loud and like Tracy laughs, and I go, oh, thank you, so-and-so. I'm not gonna put him on blast. Huh?
He says he sucked.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, and so this is the thing, when you hire a contractor to do things for you, they should be able to listen to what you want and you should be able to talk to them like a real person. They shouldn't say, wait till it's done and then talk to us. Like, there needs to be communication. Communication is key in all of this stuff with the agent, with the lender, with the contractor, all of these people. That is super important. And when the person pushes back on communication or does not do what you want done, it's time to move on. So I will take questions right now, and then I'm going to introduce my guest. But area is the most important. You have to do your due diligence. You do not shortcut. If you do shortcuts on this, you will hurt yourself financially. This is a very, very easy strategy to hurt yourself financially if you do it the wrong way. I'm talking, when I say hurt yourself financially, I'm talking to you as if you guys are doing it, but it could hurt your clients. And a lot of this is going to be put on them, and it's up to you to educate them. Your team is vital. Like, if you do not have a strong team, do not do it. You do not have a strong lender. Like, Brian's information is in the chat, and I can give it to everybody here. I'm giving you his information because I use him personally. I know he's good. I refer him out all the time. I cannot tell you another lender that I would refer, to be honest with you, 100%. Like, I don't know who I would trust. And there are good lenders out there. I just haven't worked with them. It's 100% a numbers game. You cannot bring emotion into this. It's a numbers game. And the reason people do this and are successful at it is because they take the emotion out of it and they make it a numbers game. They make it black and white. And this is why people are massively successful investing in real estate. And I cannot stress the due diligence part enough. So let's go back to the units. When you buy a home, you can buy a home in Sylmar. I don't know about San Fernando because it's its own city. Do you know anything about San Fernando? Yeah. So like Winnetka, the San Fernando Valley, lots of parts of it, there's tons of places, Bakersfield, that you can buy a home, convert the garage and put an ADU in the back. Now you went from literally one house to 3 units. You can live in the house and rent out those 2 units and make money and have your mortgage paid, or you can rent all 3 out and just have passive income. I know people doing this, it's 100% possible. But the key is who is going to build the ADU for you? Does anybody know builders? Well, I know somebody that specializes in that. That would be Florentine. So Florentine is a former team leader. I'll let you do your little spiel when you get up here. But she's a former team leader. It's how we know each other. She's at one of our sister offices. And we sat down and started talking during Bold. And she has a company that actually builds ADUs and converts garages as their specialty, not a contractor that does random stuff on the side that's going to help you do your thing. So I wanted her to come up and talk a little bit about what she does and to give her information so she's a resource for everybody. So, Florentine?
I really appreciate it. And I want to first just give a kudos to Frank for offering this for you guys. I feel like this is one of the most important conversations that we should be having in real estate right now, not only for you guys in terms of being able to be investors and building your wealth, but I mean, who here, if you had a choice between taking on a new homeowner client versus an investor client, who would you pick? You can only pick one. Most people would want the investor because they understand that that's going to be far more transactions over the lifetime relationship with that person, right? We have an amazing opportunity, which is, you know, the whole point of Frank's presentation today. We have an opportunity to create investors out of our homeowner clients by helping them understand these strategies. So both Airbnb and ADUs, I feel like, are fantastic gateways into becoming an investor. People who may not otherwise be in a position to go out and purchase a quote investment property, a full rental property. They may be in a position to build an ADU on their existing home property or to rent out space via Airbnb and start that identity as I am an investor, getting that going. I'll tell you a quick story, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about what we do, and some quick tips on if you're thinking about the ADU strategy specifically, what are some quick tips that I can give you on that? We have a client who, when we were just starting out our business 4 years ago, came to us, wanted to build an ADU in the city of Hawthorne. And it was a young couple. They had owned their house for maybe about a year and a half. They hadn't had it very long. It didn't even have a lot of equity. In order to get that first ADU built, they had to pull money from every resource they could think of. They had to take money out of their retirement account. They had to pull their savings. They had to borrow from family. They did this total patchwork approach to being able to get that ADU invested. They built a small, simple, tiny as they could afford. I mean, it was just a basic ADU. So now fast forward, just last year, they were able to, because of the increased equity on their property, now with the ADU, and their increased income, because they've been able to show the 2 years of passive income with that ADU, now they were able to purchase a second property. That is, it's their first rental property. That would not have been possible if they hadn't first built that ADU in the backyard. Right? So now they have a second property. Guess what they're getting ready to do? Build another accessory dwelling unit on that property. Right? So I just say that to say it was a great gateway for this young couple who otherwise, like, I can't imagine how long it would have taken them to buy that second property if they didn't first use the ADU as the strategy, as their gateway to get into the investment game. And so they're one of my favorite clients because they've taken that time. They didn't start out as deep pocketed investors, but they're certainly on their way. And I tell them every day for being a young couple, how smart they are to have made the sacrifices and investments that they're making. So my company is Sidekick Homes. We are an ADU design build company. So all we do pretty much is ADU. Sometimes we'll do a home addition if we're already doing an ADU on the property.
And you do garage conversions?
Yes, we do garage conversions. So if you want to convert a garage into an ADU, we've converted commercial property. There's a mixed use property that we were able to convert the front storefront into an ADU. You can also build new. You can attach an ADU to an existing building. So there's a lot of options. And to Frank's point, you can sometimes build multiple ADUs on a property. Now, they have to be certain specific types. It's not just any types of ADUs, right? So if you have a single family property, for example, you can do a garage conversion and you can do a new build, but it's limited on size and location and setbacks. And similarly, if you have a multi-family property, so you have like a duplex or more units in a building, you can typically add potentially 2 or 3 units. Again, it depends on the configuration. The way the ADU laws are written, it's a little tricky, but that's what we're here to do, is help people navigate. One of the very first things we do on a project is we start with feasibility. Let's start with the property itself and see what's possible. We've seen far too many people spend money getting plans drawn up for something that they can't actually build. And they think that their designer just knows all the ADU laws. And most people don't. A lot of the cities even don't have a clear idea of the ADU laws that they're there to put into place. So, most designers will go into a city and say, well, I want to build an ADU. What can I do on this property? And a lot of times they get wrong information. A lot of times they're told things that actually are in violation of the state law. So the state of California has made it such that you can build ADUs in pretty much every city in the state. Not necessarily every property, but every city has to allow for ADUs, and they have to allow some pretty generous parameters. They basically have to create a lot of allowances in their zoning to allow for them. So they're an amazing strategy in that respect. I saw we had a question here.
Sorry, I just was, could you define ADU?
Yeah, what is an ADU? Great question. So an accessory dwelling unit is defined by the state of California as a valuable form of housing that is meant to house, this is actually what the legal definition is, but I have it memorized, it's in almost all of my presentations. A valuable form of housing, number one. It's intended to house the elderly, caregivers, students, basically anybody in a existing neighborhood. And it has to have four things. So it has to have a separate entrance. It has to have a restroom, a kitchen, and sleeping quarters. And it is accessory to a main dwelling. So if there's not a main dwelling or a proposed main dwelling on a property, you can't have an accessory dwelling unit, right? It's accessory to the main.
And if it's like, when you say, has to have its own entrance, do you mean like, if it's in the back of the house, they have to have a door going to there, and then a door also, like obviously the actual building.
Yeah, you need an exterior entrance into the unit. So you can't like have to go through the main house in order to get to the unit.
Right.
Yeah. And then there's something called a junior ADU, which is a whole nother game. So there's a lot of ways to get these additional units. There's also opportunities with recently passed SB 9 that allows you to split lots. So there's a lot of opportunities for how to get these additional units for housing. Now, in this conversation, Frank talked about Airbnb and he talked about accessory dwelling units. These are two distinct strategies, and actually the thing you're wanting to build is an ADU, you can't actually use that for an ADU. So they are two distinct strategies. You're gonna do one or you're gonna do the other. So yes.
How does Airbnb work? I know a little bit about it, but it's like rental.
Airbnb, you're renting on a short-term basis,
Yeah.
so 30 days or less. Yeah. So yeah, and I'm actually not an Airbnb specialist, but you're basically renting it out for someone that's traveling, right? More so than renting out to someone that's going to live in the unit.
Why would anybody do Airbnb when they get a little bit more money?
Do you know what? People have different reasons for the strategies that they choose. I think some people may want to do Airbnb because they might be able to get a higher per night rate on a unit. So that could be, just depends on the market. They also may want to use a property for a short-term use because they may want to use it for themselves. Yeah, for another portion of time. So I think there's different reasons why people do different strategies.
The convenience probably of it too, because I mean, I imagine like, you know, it's like the same thing, like Uber doesn't really do anything other than connecting with a customer.
Exactly.
And the guy who's gonna dig into
Yeah.
dig into the service. So if everyone's on Airbnb, have like thousands of clients on that thing, you have just a much higher possibility than of like finding someone who's gonna do it for that time instead of like writing a lease, even if the lease might still be more.
So it's about your due diligence, like
Yeah.
some areas you're gonna do Airbnb, you're gonna make more money, and other places rental, you're gonna make more money. So you just kind of gotta pick a strategy, they both can make more money, but they can also be winners and losers if you pick the wrong area, that's why you have.
Correct.
Better to choose both.
What?
Better to choose both.
What if you choose both? You're gonna have a lot of money and my hat's off, so.
Yeah. Yeah, and we will, one thing that we do for realtors, a lot of our business honestly is referred by realtors that we know. And so one of the big things that we do is we will, we do a research report where we'll actually look at all of the zoning, determine what's actually possible on a property. We actually will go on site and look at a number of things that can tell us how feasible is an ADU on this property. And we always give a discount to our realtor partners. We normally charge $300 for that. We give a $50 discount. I taught a class recently about feasibility and all the things that we do and that you should look at during feasibility. And I asked people afterwards, I said, how much would you pay for a service like this? And I think the lowest price that someone said was $3,200. Somebody was like, you should be charging like $15,000 for this. So $300 is a steal, and then we give you guys a discount as well. So what happens a lot of times with our company is a realtor will call us when they're going into escrow on a property, and the client knows they want to build an ADU. We'll actually be part of their inspection contingencies. We'll actually go in, do the research on the property, come on site, and do that full feasibility for the client, just so that they can have that certainty for what they can build, how many units can they build, et cetera. A lot of times there will be an unpermitted unit, and people want to know, what is the feasibility of actually permitting this unpermitted unit? What is likely going to be needed to make that So those are some of the things that we're able to do. Yes.
You have cases when people, several people buying the income property and sharing the profit.
So the question I got is, do we often have situations where there are multiple people that go in together on a rental property? We don't have that a lot, but I think it's a very underutilized strategy, to be honest. One thing we have seen, we've seen strategies where family members or even two coworkers in one situation went in on a property, and one is living in the main house and the other's converting the garage to an ADU. And so that they both have co-ownership, and it was the only way they could both afford to buy. It was two single women. It was the only way they could both afford to buy a home. So they went in on that together. But I think it's smart. I think it would be smart to have a fund. And I've talked to some investors interested in setting up an investment fund just to purchase properties and add units to them. Yeah, so there's a lot of amazing strategies when it comes to ADUs. One thing I did want to touch on that's really important that Frank had mentioned is hiring a qualified builder. And I'm so glad that Frank used the word builder, because a lot of people just think they're going to call any old general contractor and that's who's going to build an ADU. An accessory dwelling unit is essentially a house. And so you really need to hire somebody that has home building experience. There are a lot of general contractors that can build you a deck or they can remodel your bathroom, but that doesn't mean they're qualified to build a whole house, to bring those utilities in, to pour the foundation, to deal with all of the structural requirements. And that is one of the biggest ways that I have seen a lot of people get themselves in trouble in their projects, is they don't really hire a qualified builder. And so please understand that distinction. You really want a builder, preferably somebody that does know ADUs. One of the things I had mentioned is a lot of the cities don't have clarity on the ADU law. My team is we're part of a consulting team that's working with 5 different cities right now on their ADU ordinances and putting together the pre-approved ADU plans for these cities. And even very well-intentioned cities a lot of times get it wrong. We're still in a position right now about half the plans that we submit to cities to get approved are coming back with some form of correction or requirement that's not lawful by state law. They're asking our clients to do something that's going to cost our clients money. We just recently on a property, we got about $8,700 worth of fees reversed because they never should have been charged on that property. We've had requirements like cities wanting the client to remove the driveway since they're converting the garage. And we've said, no, you can't require that. We've gotten out of oak tree permits that the permitting process would have cost our client $15,000 to go through that oak tree permitting process. We've gotten that requirement removed. We've got landscaping requirements to the tunes of, $15,000 to $20,000 on a multifamily property removed. So just because we have that knowledge of the ADU law, I actually teach, we don't have one in the books, but if anyone wants to give me their card, we're actually getting ready to schedule the next class to certify ADU specialists. So I'm the licensed instructor for Southern California for the curriculum that certifies people as ADU specialists. I'm always trying to get these city planners to come to our class so that they get a really good idea of what the state ADU laws are. So those are some of the things that I can tell you to kind of watch out for. One other tidbit that I would give would be in terms of lending, and this is where Brian would be a fantastic resource. If you or your client are purchasing a property and your intention is to right away convert to go convert an ADU or build an ADU, have that conversation with the lender up front. Because what I oftentimes will see is somebody will spend up front to get a low interest rate, right? They'll put their 20, 25% down. They'll buy down their mortgage rate, right? And then they have no cash to build the ADU. It might have been, and I say might, every situation's different. So this is talk to your lender, right? But it might have been a better strategy to put less money down and have the cash to build the ADU, because a lot of people think there's going to be a magic ADU loan at the end, and really we're going to have to do an equity loan of some kind, right? It might be a construction loan, it might be a HELOC, etc. So have that strategic conversation during the purchase, because the lender will probably be able to look at different scenarios and tell you what the best way is to approach it if you're wanting to have the resources as well after you close to actually get the ADU built. The last thing I want to do is go screw up someone's amazing perfect loan. They paid all this money to buy down their fees and whatnot, their rates, and now we're refinancing that loan that they just got. So that would be another tip I would say for folks as realtors. What questions do you guys have?
What's
Yes.
the timeframe like to get permitting? If you had a client who like, okay, they definitely want to do it, so they know.
Great question.
Perfect. So great question is, what is the time frame that somebody should expect? And I typically will tell people, expect at least a year from beginning to end. It takes us a couple months to go through the design phase and get all the designs ready to submit to the city. How long it sits with the city is the biggest unknown. It could be a couple months. We've had it less than 2 months. We've also had ones go over a year. So it depends on the jurisdiction. If you're buying with an investor mind, we can give you some insights and advice on cities that are better and that are cities that are going to take longer, right? Because if you've got an investment sitting waiting a year versus 2 months, it's a big, that's a big factor. And then it's usually 4 to 6 months to do the actual construction. So kind of when you add up all the numbers, we're roughly a year. Again, depending on the jurisdiction we're submitting to, it could be longer. I don't like to name names when I'm being recorded. So I'm going to hesitate on, saying the names of cities, but there are some that definitely can count on being quite a bit longer.
Okay, LA,
Yeah.
LA County is really harsh on investors and builders. That's why we don't have a lot. And that's just a fact. But that's why I mentioned Bakersfield. Like going out of the area and going into other legalities will be better in some cases, but this is why your team is so important, because if Florentine's on this job with you, your lender, and everybody's gonna have to talk. They're all gonna have to talk, they're all gonna have to figure out what's gonna be best, and you guys all have to have communication to figure out, maybe the Valley's not the best place, maybe Bakersfield is, and it's a numbers game, and you have to communicate and do it all enough, and over communicate, it usually works out.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Does rent control apply to these?
So every
That's a great question.
parts of the city are a little different. Some parts are rent control, some part are not. You gotta do your due diligence. So if you're renting something, then rent control would be in effect if that's a law in that city.
So ADUs would be but for.
Correct, if you're a renter,
I
yeah.
thought that would only apply to buildings that were very old.
Every city's gonna have a different rent control
Again,
law.
Airbnb.
Absolutely, 100%. It's not a bad
What is better to famous about?
oil. So they don't have to be famous for anything to have Airbnb, but traveling nurses is one of the things that Airbnb, people are looking at, and there's always, because I have 4 Airbnbs between this year and next year, I'm dealing with Airbnb on 4 different occasions for the simple fact, the convenience and the cost. I went to go rent a hotel in Vegas for February. It's a long time away. You figure I get a good deal, right? The place I wanted to stay was $600 a night. And it was not the Bellagio. It was not a super crazy expensive hotel. I went got an Airbnb literally across the street. It was Game of Thrones themed, which was kind of cool with an amazing view for $150 a night.
Yeah.
So, you don't have to have anything special in the city to do Airbnb, but you get AirDNA and you research the area to see what type of income can I expect from this area. And then you find a referral agent that's out there. And I can hook you up if anybody wants Bakersfield, because I run that office out there and we have amazing agents out there. So,
Yes, other questions?
For me on Zoom, asking, is that standard for California or more so LA?
All right, so Brittany, the question is that standard in California or is that more LA? If we don't answer the question, please put follow-up. We're just trying to figure out what standard is. And what I can tell you is ADUs are allowed in every city in the state of California. The state mandates it, and there's very limited restrictions that cities can put on size, location, etc. Bottom line is you should be able to get at least an 800 square foot ADU on most properties.
time frame. What about the time frame?
Oh, the time frame. Yeah, it's gonna really go from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, really. One of the best is City of LA, but it depends on the number of clearances. So it depends on the specific property and the number of clearances. Clearances are going to be the requirements to go through. Are we going through fire? Do we have to go through the engineering department? Is there an encroachment permit that we're going to have to get? So it just depends on that specific property and probably the number of clearances and how backed up each of those departments is, right? So like City of LA, if we have to go through fire, there's a 4-month wait for fire. In most cities, if we have to get an encroachment permit through LADWP or SoCal Edison, there's a 4-month backlog on that, right? So it just really depends. And while I can say in general, City of LA is faster, we have had some City of LA projects that took a very, very long time. So it really just depends. You know, another tidbit that I can also leave you guys with is really vet the person or the company that you're going to be doing business with and make sure that you really feel comfortable with their knowledge and their experience level. And the reason I say that is a lot of people go and they bid an ADU project like you would bid getting a roof done or getting a painting job done, not realizing you're building a home, right? This isn't just like a bid a project out. And if someone just gives you numbers for your ADUs, probably they're not qualified, right? Especially if you don't have stamped floor plans yet. So I think what's most important is that you can talk to someone about their past projects, talk to them about what their costs have been, what their timeframes have been for past projects, but vet the people out. Bidding is a little bit less impactful because you're not going to really get real numbers. To Frank's point, you're going to get people who are going to say, we can do it for this much money and we can do it in this much time. And that's not going to end up being the reality. And the more general and ballparky the numbers, probably the more you're going to exceed that over the course of the project, right? It's not going to just be the numbers that you're shown in the beginning. Our projects, we do a very detailed estimate. Again, we're a builder, right? We're not just a contractor that's just going to give you numbers. We're a builder, and we actually price out, you know, we actually do material takeoffs. We price out what is our material. We price out what is the labor cost going to be, et cetera. So we can get to real numbers. And most of our projects are within like 1 to 3% of where we started, compared to the industry that's like 30 to 40% over where you started in the beginning. We do that because we're putting real numbers together because we're a builder, right? We're not just a contractor kind of guesstimating at what it's going to be to get the job done. So really vet the team that you're going to work with. The reality is we're all buying from the same lumber yards. We're all paying the same amount for our material. We're all competing for the same very limited skilled labor pool. So, you know, the cost to build is the cost to build. In reality, it's just, are you going to really know the numbers up front, or are you going to kind of be given a runaround on what the numbers are and kind of figure out as you go along? That's really the big difference there.
Yes, Maranta, we'll get that for you. She's going to give out her information.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I'll give out the information. I'll also just pass around. There's a class that we're doing next Wednesday just for realtors. So it's just for you guys on the latest legislation that just passed related to ADUs. There's some really fun things coming out in terms of being able to potentially sell an ADU as a condo, as a separate unit. Some very interesting things. So I'm going to pass these around, and for the people online, I'll just put where you can find information online. Is this online, Frank? Can they
yes.
see?
And
Okay.
we can also we'll have Laura put some stuff in the chat as well.
Okay, cool.
Use the black one, it'll work better.
The black one will work better. Yeah, I don't see a black one, but here's the one. Okay. All right. So website is just sidekick.homes. And then if you go to /events, you'll be able to see, I don't know if they can see that. So it's just sidekick.homes/events. And there's an event called the latest news on ADUs. And so this is going to get you the legislation that just passed less than 2 weeks ago that hasn't even been signed yet by the governor. So you guys will be hot off the press. As your clients start asking you questions, you'll be in the know. And that's the whole intention, is let's get this information. It doesn't go into effect into January, but let's get this information into your hands, because your clients are going to start asking you, how can they build an ADU and turn it into a condo? I think this is going to potentially be a game changer for the industry, because now not only can you rent it out, but you can now potentially create units and sell them. which we'll see how hot people are on picking up on that one. But I think that's a very exciting possibility. So we'll be talking about that next week. If anybody wants to plan to attend that, we also have a resource page with resources just for realtors on things like what to look for in a property that has good ADU potential. If you're listing a property that has an ADU or has ADU potential, what should you do? How can you market that to get the highest value for your clients? How to work with appraisers who are probably going to undervalue your ADU, how to get ahead of that, and how to work with those appraisers. We have a resource you can actually give to the appraiser. So on our website, instead of /events, if you go to /realtors only, there should be a place for you to enter your information and get those resources that are really just to help you guys with your clients. It's called Realtors Only.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you
.homes/realtors
only. Yeah. And it's just a great toolkit. We're constantly adding to it, but it's just a lot of great resources for you guys as realtors to be able to get out there and support your clients, and be that more knowledgeable person. Yeah. Cool.
How does that work? I mean, I know it's still like pending legislation. How does that work when it's like your property you own it and you're selling like that? I guess.
Well, you're going to have to come next week. That's a whole class. That's a whole class with slides and content, a whole bigger conversation. But it's a pretty exciting conversation to have.
If you guys want
Yeah.
to talk to Florentine, she'll be here after the class. We're gonna work on wrapping things up right now. Should have anything else?
I'm good. I just want to thank you guys for the opportunity, and I'm excited about this opportunity to create investors out of your homeowner clients.
Absolutely.
I mean, you do a major favor for them that will impact potentially for generations to come. So I mean, it's really changing people's lives, and it's also increasing over the lifetime of your relationship with that client, probably the number of transactions you'll do. So I think it's a very much a win-win strategy.
Brian, do you have anything to add to any of this? I heard you listening diligently. Oh, you're muted. I do, but he's.
No, great information. She hit the nail on the head though. Working with the lender is very important because there's different ways of structuring.
Hold on, say that again, but take yourself off of mute on Zoom so the people on Zoom can hear you. There you go.
All right, so yeah, it was great information. She hit the nail on the head though, working with the lender, because you could put less down and keep the money available for the ADU at a 7% interest rate versus a second mortgage or something down the road where you want to take out money for 11%. So strategizing with the lender is of the utmost importance early on and up front.
Awesome. Anybody else have any questions before we wrap it up?
Yes.
Yes.
Once it's all.
Outside of this. Okay, no problem. Thank you, Florentine, everybody.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And if you guys have any questions about this, let me know and we can work it out. But this is probably the really cool thing about this is nobody's doing it. So it's a huge opportunity. So thank you everybody for coming. If you have any questions, get me offline. But other than that, I hope everybody has a fantastic day.